You're standing in the middle of a living room that's half sunlit, half dark, and you just want a TV that looks great in both, doesn't force you into a tech support nightmare, and actually feels worth the money. You've probably spent an hour scrolling through specs and wondering whether you'll end up with a beautiful picture that still looks washed out after a few weeks, or a fancy sound system you'll never use. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's talk about why the Samsung 65-inch S85F might be the middle ground you're looking for, and when it's better to keep looking. First off, most people buying a 65-inch TV are doing it for two reasons: movie nights that feel like a small theater, and a screen big enough for sports or gaming without turning the whole room into a glare-filled mess. The biggest hesitation I've seen is the fear of future-proofing. You buy a pricey model, but in a year the picture looks dull next to a newer OLED, or the sound system feels like an afterthought. The S85F tries to solve that by putting AI-driven upscaling front and center. In everyday use, that means your 1080p Blu-ray or a streaming show that's only 720p will automatically get a boost in sharpness and color fidelity. I tested a couple of older series on a 4K Netflix plan, and the AI really did pull out textures in a nature documentary that would normally look flat. It's not a miracle that turns any source into native 4K, but it does make the old content feel less dated. Who should consider this TV? If you're a family that watches a mix of streaming services, occasional console gaming, and maybe a few sports games a week, the S85F gives you a solid all-round experience. The AI Gen 2 processor handles fast-moving sports without the usual smear you sometimes see on OLEDs, and the color-boosting algorithm, which Samsung says is Pantone-validated, keeps skin tones natural, something you'll notice in sitcom marathons or video calls. The built-in Alexa also means you can dim the lights, change the volume, or switch inputs without hunting for a remote, which is a nice convenience for busy households. Who should walk away? If you're a dedicated cinephile who expects a calibrated reference monitor, or if you're a hardcore gamer who needs sub-30 ms input lag and HDMI 2.1 features like variable refresh rate, the S85F isn't the top contender. The TV does support HDR10+ and Dolby Atmos, but it lacks the full suite of gaming-specific HDMI settings that the higher-end QN series offers. Also, if you live in a bright, sun-flooded room with large windows, the OLED's peak brightness, while respectable, can still be outshined by premium LED models that push 2000 nits. In a room with strong ambient light, you might notice the blacks lose a bit of their absolute depth. On the picture side, the standout is the dynamic contrast handling. In a dimly lit room, the OLED panels give you true inky blacks that make horror movies feel immersive. When I switched on a daytime news channel, the TV automatically lifted the mid-tones so the anchors didn't look washed out against the window glare. The AI-enhanced upscaling also means the TV feels future-ready without you needing to upgrade your streaming plan immediately. One practical weakness, though, is the risk of temporary image retention if you leave static logos up for too long, a common OLED quirk. In my week-long test, I left a news ticker on for a few hours and the ghost faded after a short pause, but it's something to keep in mind if you use the TV as a background monitor. Sound is where Samsung tries to differentiate with object tracking sound, Lite, and Dolby Atmos support. In a small to medium living room, the built-in speakers create a surprisingly enveloping effect. Dialogue seems to come from the center of the screen while background music swirls around you. I paired it with a soundbar for a weekend movie marathon, and the TV's speakers still filled the room enough that I could hear subtle details without cranking the volume. The downside is that the speaker array isn't powerful enough for a large open-plan space. You'll still want a dedicated sound system if you want that cinema-level punch. The Lite label is accurate, it adds atmosphere but doesn't replace a full-stack audio setup. Smart features are another practical consideration. Samsung's Tizen OS has been around for a while, so the interface feels familiar and the app library is comprehensive. You can launch Netflix, Disney+, or YouTube with a single tap, and the AI recommendation engine learns what you watch and surfaces similar titles on the home screen. The Alexa integration works for basic voice commands, but it's not as deep as a full Echo Show. You can't ask it to read the weather on the TV screen, for example. Still, the ability to control smart lights or a thermostat without leaving the couch is a convenience that many families appreciate. Now for the hidden trade-offs. The TV's design is sleek, the contour frame does look elegant, and it sits flush against the wall with